One of the participants down there, Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was talking to people about what their life is like with their teams. And although none of them are in the Super Bowl, because none of the Super Bowl contenders were able to be in the Pro Bowl, Myles Garrett says, that sounds a lot better than what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett says, that's a lot better than what I'm going through. You guys are trying to win up there, you think? Yeah, I think so. You're trying to make it to where? Super Bowl? Yeah. I want to do that. Get me the hell out of here. Request a trade this morning from the Cleveland Browns. This is another holy shit moment in sports. Just a few days ago down at the Senior Bowl, Andrew Berry, general manager of the Cleveland Browns, said, I'm not listening to anybody trying to trade for Myles Garrett, who has 2 years left on his contract of non-guaranteed money. Signed a 5-year, $125 million deal, $100 million guaranteed. Final 2 years non-guaranteed. So is this a business move? Potentially. Is this a, hey, I want a new contract statement? Maybe. Or is this Myles Garrett being sick and tired of not being in the playoffs and playing meaningful football? Potentially as well. We will certainly keep an ear to the ground and ask Adam Schefter about it in about 7 minutes. Myles Garrett has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. How do you feel about that? You think this is a business move? And did you hear Schefter basically say, I don't know if the Browns are going to let him go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's partly a business move, but he definitely wants out of there. I feel like the whole complacency thing. I feel like in the his message right here that you have popped up, that tells you a lot. He feels like, yeah, there's no future here in Cleveland. There's no path to a Super Bowl, I guess, anytime soon. But I don't know, man. I don't know if how do you keep him around? Like he's not going to come into the facility. When does he come back? If you say, nah, we're good, we're not trading it.
Well, he doesn't have to for a long time. You know, mandatory OTAs and minicamp aren't until June or May or something like that. So there's a lot of time between now and then. But I think if you listen to anybody talk about this, to get a trade done, there's going to have to be a lot of stuff that gets done. You know, the amount of things that are going to have to get figured out. And as Cole iterated to, Hassan Reddick gets traded to the Jets. They just think it's going to be okay. They don't get a deal done with him. He never steps foot in the building. Myles Garrett's going to need a deal done, we assume, before he gets anywhere. The amount of compensation is going to be great. You go back to the Khalil Mack deal whenever he was 27 years old to Chicago out of the Raiders. It's like there's a lot of work that has to get done for a deal to come to place for Myles Garrett, but he certainly made a bird call for that. And then, him saying he wants to win, not just go to Canton, what is a contender? A contender in his eyes is basically how Schefter talked about it. Well, are they going to pay top dollar for Myles Garrett, or is he going to take a discount to go to some of these places? There's just so many questions now that are out there. Inevitably, the Browns control all of it, AJ.
Yeah, but I want to know how much power Myles Garrett has. Does he have power in his contract to where he can shut a trade down if he does not want to go to a team? He doesn't have any power like that?
No, that's what Schefter brought up. Is this is the Browns basically have all the power here, but Myles would have to get a deal done any place he goes to, so that's the control that he has. If somebody's willing to offer up 3 ones or 2 ones, a second and a fourth for Myles Garrett, if they can't get a deal done, they're not going to pull the trigger, you would hope, even though the Jets have been able to do it in the past, unless they already talked to Myles and Myles says, yes, we get a deal done. Because Myles could do what Jimmy Butler just did. Jimmy Butler basically told the Warriors, I'm not going to do a long-term agreement with you, so they pulled their offer. They said they're not going to trade with the Miami Heat. So Myles has all the say because of that. But inevitably, if the Browns don't want to move on, it's the Browns' say and not Myles Garrett.
Yeah, it happened with Brandon Ayuk over the offseason with the New England Patriots, where the Niners and the Patriots agreed to terms on a trade, and then the Patriots and Brandon Ayuk couldn't come to terms on a contract. So inevitably, obviously, it fell through, and then Brandon Ayuk still got paid in San Fran.
What the hell is going on?
Oh, they're a mess.
Because literally just a week ago, Andrew Berry was like, we're not trading Myles Garrett. He is not available. Now, all of a sudden, Myles Garrett's saying, is that right?
Yeah.
I think I am available. Joining us now, a man who released Myles Garrett's statement and probably knows a little bit more about the behind-the-scenes, senior NFL insider for ESPN, Michigan man, Adam Schefter.
Yeah,
Schefter, you look awesome as the sun hits your face in the weird little place. You look awesome. Thank you for joining us. Massive morning here. We thought the trade between Luka, AD, and then Utah getting sprinkled in there would be the biggest conversation. It certainly still is, but Myles Garrett, perennial All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year candidate every single year, wanting to be traded with 2 non-guaranteed years left on his contract, just 1 week removed from the general manager saying they aren't listening to any trade offers for him. How did we get here? And is he only going to contenders, or is he going to other buildings that have money and potentially a better vision than Cleveland Browns?
If he's going, again, because we have a team here in the Cleveland Browns. I know we get swept up in the moment. We've got this Defensive Player of the Year requesting a trade out of Cleveland. And this is not a surprise to the Browns. The Browns knew about his unhappiness. I think they've asked around. They've prepared for it. They've gotten some opinions about how to best handle this situation, knowing that it could be coming. And I think that they are dug in and entrenched in their stance that they're not going to trade Myles Garrett. That's not the kind of player you move on from. You're talking about arguably the best defensive player in the league, 29 years old. That's a player that helps you win a Super Bowl, and that's what the Browns want to try to do. So, again, we can continue to talk about this, and we will, because it's certainly interesting. But we also have one side here in the Cleveland Browns that doesn't want to trade Myles Garrett and says it won't trade Myles Garrett. And the GM, Andrew Berry, even has told reporters that he doesn't care if he's offered 2 number ones, he's not trading Myles Garrett. Now, what we have, what changes the equation some potentially, is we've got Myles Garrett now going public with the statement and the idea that he does want out of Cleveland. He wants to play on a team where he believes he's got a chance to win a Super Bowl, which obviously he doesn't feel like is the case in Cleveland. So the Browns, if they trade him, there's acceleration on his contract to the tune of about $35 or so million. They're already over the cap. To trade him becomes financially difficult and challenging. Not saying that they can't do it, but it's hard. So I think the whole situation here, Pat, is honestly, in my mind, how dug in is Myles Garrett? How miserable is he prepared to try to make life for the Cleveland Browns? Is he willing to sit no matter what when they go to training camp? If they haven't traded him by then, is he continually going to issue statements saying how unhappy he is and how much he wants out? Does he make it such that he forces them to trade him, or do they acquiesce to his wishes and listen to him when that's not what they want to do? And they've been perfectly clear about that.
Okay, so in your eyes, if you had to project right now, and I know we literally just learned of Myles Garrett taking this thing public, but these situations have certainly happened before in the NFL, certainly during your time of covering the NFL. When the season starts, you think Myles Garrett has a new deal with some guaranteed money? You think this is business-wise? Do you think he's a Cleveland Brown, or do you think he's going to be gone? Because once somebody goes public, what is that? That's just putting massive pressure on Andrew Berry to see if he's really about it?
Okay, but you know what? Deebo Samuel issued a trade request to the 49ers 2 years ago. He's still there. Brandon Ayuk issued a trade request to the 49ers last year. He's still there. So when you issue a trade request in the NFL, it's not final that you're being traded. There are still many steps to go through. And again, the Browns have been very public in the idea that they're not moving on from Myles Garrett. They're not trading him, which is why I come back to the point is how difficult is Myles Garrett willing to make life for them?
Yeah.
Is he going to make it such that they have to trade him? If you're the Browns, you go to Myles Garrett now. You say, Myles, I know you want to be out, but we want to make you the highest paid defensive player in football. You feel any better? No, I don't. I still want to. Oh, you still want to? Okay, we want to make you the highest paid defensive player, and we want your input on what we should do at quarterback now and what you think are some guys that you think could help the team. You feel better now? No? Okay, like what can you do to make him feel better? Usually when a player hears that he's the highest paid something player in NFL history, I'm not telling you that will happen. I don't know how Myles feels, but sometimes that makes a player feel better and change his mind.
Got it, especially with 2 non-guaranteed money years left for somebody his caliber. Obviously, this is potentially a business play by Myles to kind of put some public pressure on the Browns to make it happen. But let's say trade does take place. D-Butch has a question for you.
Yeah, and this, I know you mentioned Ayuk and Debo, but this is, number 1 pick, premier guy at a very, very elite position. But so let's say it does get to that point. What would the compensation be for Myles Garrett, you think? And can you recall a pass rusher of this caliber moving at this point in his career?
Khalil Mack would be the closest comparison that would be out there right now, because when Khalil Mack requested a trade, it was not altogether dissimilar to Myles Garrett. There were teams salivating at the idea of trading for Mack when he was playing with the Raiders. And I posted the compensation before, earlier this morning. Let me just call it up exactly to give you an idea. But the trade comp on Khalil Mack was he was traded from Oakland to Chicago. the Bears gave up 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a 6th-round pick for Mac, a 2, and a conditional 5. So 2 1s, a 3, a 6, for Mac, a 2, and a 5.
Jeez.
Now, that went on for a while. I don't know that the Raiders maximized the return. Mac refused to budge. Mac was 27 at the time. Myles Garrett's 29. Again, that's the best comp, I think, that's out there right now. Myles Garrett is an elite player. Again, you can make the argument he's the best defensive player in the league very easily. So I think that the return is probably along those lines. But again, we have the Browns GM, Andrew Berry, on record saying that he wouldn't even consider 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett, which, by the way, would be my stance as well if I were the GM. I would say I wouldn't consider 3 ones for the guy. That's what I would say. Now, what I would wind up taking would be a different deal. So it's just a question of gamesmanship. Now, again, is this a business play by Myles Garrett? I don't think so. I think he legitimately wants to be in a place where he feels like he's going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl. But, again, is there anything that could get him off that changes his mind?
So, last question from me, and obviously we're all learning about this as we go. So that means he's only going to teams that are contenders? Is that what we're hearing? Or
that's what, in his ideal world, that's what he's doing.
Okay.
Now, again, what if they said, we're trading you, I'm making this up, to Chicago? Is Chicago, is Chicago a Super Bowl contender right now? But what if Chicago, he feels like, I think the best way of saying it, he wants to go to what he believes is a Super Bowl contender. But I think, as we talk about this, I think that would be a place that he believes gives him more hope to win a Super Bowl championship than the Browns do. And there are probably multiple NFL franchises that would fall into that category, because I think if you had to consider it, 31 teams probably would be interested in trading for Myles Garrett.
That's what because we went through the salary cap and what the projected amount of money is. And obviously you look at a lot of these teams and it's like, well, the Patriots would obviously benefit from having Myles Garrett. Yeah. Vrabel was in Cleveland this past year. They have the money to do it, but would Myles be like, yep, you know what? I'm going up to New England because I believe they could potentially be a Super Bowl contender. Then you just go down the line there of all the people that have it. Like, does he think the Chargers are potentially a Super Bowl contender, even though they haven't really been able to get close to the dance in some time? Does he believe Harbaugh changes things? Chicago, it's like, does he think Ben Johnson will be able to get them to a Super Bowl? It's like, is it his projected contender or the actual contenders? Like, is he thinking about going to Baltimore that only has $8.9 million? They can't even really seemingly afford them, or the Chiefs, or going to Detroit, or going to the Packers maybe, who had a chance to go to run. Like, what does he mean? I think we just kind of wait and see, I guess, Schefter.
Well, I think, first of all, a few things to keep in mind. I don't think there's any way or chance in hell that the Browns ever would consider trading him in a division. So you could knock out those teams. And by the way, they said they're not trading him at all. They're certainly not trading him in a division. I would think that if they're trading him, they certainly wouldn't want to trade him in conference. And again, they say they don't want to trade him. And Myles Garrett would have the ability, because any team would have to give up a haul, and any team that trades for him obviously would want to have him under contract. So he would have some say there, because let's just say it was New England. Let's say he doesn't like that area. He doesn't believe in the team. He doesn't like whatever it is. He could say, I'm not going there. Sorry, Connor. I'm not trying to pick any. I'm just giving you an
No. We've been talking about that all morning, but it's like Minnesota, Detroit, Packers, all those.
It's what he believes. It's what he feels. It's what he feels. And any team that would give up what it would be required to acquire him. And again, this is even considering the idea that the Browns would be willing to trade him, which they haven't been. But if they were, then it would have to be to a team that is going to give up so much, and they're not going to give up that much without having him under contract or him being unhappy about being traded. So he's going to have to sign off on the trade, even though he doesn't have a no trade request. So he's going to basically be able to dictate it. That's if Cleveland ever gets to the spot where it moves off its current stance of we're not trading him. So there's a lot of things that have to happen before we get there, just to give you an idea of where this is at.
All right, well, good luck to all parties.
Yep.
Good luck to all parties. There's a lot of NFC teams, though, that are doing a little dance thinking they can Myles Garrett. Green Bay Packers, you'd give up 2 ones, a third, and pay him?
Yes.
To get him on the squad?
Yes.
Vikings probably do the same. They don't even have a quarterback yet, but if you get another game wrecker on the defensive side, Lions, they lose Aiden Hutchinson, still able to win, but in the end, not able to get to where they want to go. Why not continue to build depth?
Anything they want, they can have it.
And then with the Niners, the Niners adding Myles Garrett to that defense after a disappointing year, and now granted Christian McCaffrey didn't play. There's
him and Bosa.
A lot of NFC teams that would be like, all right, let's go and get it. Hopefully Andrew Berry is able to figure it out.